You must work. You must work patiently. Patiently and persistently. Patiently and persistently. Ardently. And you will bound to be successful. Bound to be successful. Those are the words of Goenkaji during the 10-day Vipassana retreat, which he repeated God knows how many times a day. So, in his funny accent, it was so deeply ingrained into your brain. So, hey everyone, I thought I would record a video about kind of my 10-day meditation retreat, just because I think a lot of folks were asking and curious about the experience. And also because when I went online and just read about everyone else's experiences, I thought it was pretty interesting. So for folks who are thinking about it, did it, and just want to kind of relate to some funny experiences that happened during that time, I thought I would just share kind of what I went through and how it's affected me a couple of weeks out. So leading up to, my Vipassana retreat, I was in a kind of precarious state. Like I quit vaping, and that basically decimated me. Like I took it way harder than I thought. Like I heard from a lot of folks that, quitting nicotine was challenging, and I've obviously seen my parents attempt multiple times to quit it. But I just really was having a really tough time kind of sucking myself out of the day-to-day rigmarole because of the fact that like I had tried to quit, and it was basically like a huge challenge, and I was feeling kind of consistently behind because I basically had to take like 3 weeks off because of the vaping. And going into it, really what I wanted was, I've been meditating for on and off 10 years, 2 years pretty consistently, and there's these moments, not only in meditation but in life, where kind of experience and consciousness become one and the same, right? You are no longer having an experience, you feel like you are experience. And it was those moments where it really felt for me, and I haven't had multitudes of them, but just a couple, but enough that you're like, whoa, like what's going on, right? There isn't like this unsatisfactoriness, this, I gotta mind that's like playing in the background. There is just kind of whatever's happening in your sensory awareness, and time just feels like it kind of stops. And those moments, are so cherished to me, right? And they come in a variety of ways. They even come in flow states during work. They came I had probably one of my longer ones when I went to this festival and they were burning an effigy of a tree, and just kind of like that experience of presently being aware of the effigy burning was very powerful. And obviously I had a couple of them in my meditations. I was excited to kind of have that. Like that's what I was looking for. I was looking for that type of experience, and I didn't really get that at all. What drew me to the Vipassana Meditation Center and the Vipassana kind of 10-day retreat in particular was the silent part, right? Even before like I was super into meditation, like I talk so much for my job. Like thankfully a lot less than before, but back in the day, this is in 2019, I was on the phone constantly, like leading the calls, right? Like not like a passive kind of observer in the calls. I was literally like running the calls, making decisions, right? Like, and I was doing like legal analysis on the calls as well, like trying to figure out things. People are asking me a bunch of questions. And, after a huge kind of string of calls, I basically just screamed to myself, like, God, I wish I would shut up. And I looked up in an impulse, silent retreat, and I found this. And so that was really kind of the initial draw, was like just this ability to be silent. And it was just funny just going into the retreat, how much we aren't silent. Or when's the last time I never had my phone? Or when's the last time I never did anything of that nature, right? So it was interesting to kind of, go into that experience, expecting that, and to realize that in effect, The silent part wasn't that hard at all. Like this was just for me, but giving away my phone and all my worldly possessions at the beginning, they give you this, they make you give away all your worldly possessions at the beginning. So, you got nothing in your pockets, everything's gone. It was super liberating. I was like, oh, hell yeah, take it. I don't want it. I don't want this thing. I don't want my phone. I'm so excited just to like not talk for 10 days. And the not talking did not affect me at all. The not reading, no external stimulus did not affect me at all. And I'm not like, I think I go through, the dopamine, hits as everybody else. Like, mine is more kind of on the news and stuff than social media, but it's the same bullshit, right? Um, so that didn't affect me at all. But I saw other people kind of get affected by this, like oh my god, like you walk into a room and homeboys fucking attentively reading like the fire drill, like instructions by the like the emergency exit. Like I'm like, dude, that looks so boring. Or when you walk into a room like here, when you walk into any room these days, like no one fucking notices you, right? Over there, you walk into a room and everyone is just like, just like just totally like surprised to see you. At the end of the retreat, when we were allowed to speak, I was talking to one guy and he was saying that like he would bring in his deodorant to the bathroom so he had something to read. So that was for me. The silent was not that hard, but for other folks, differing circumstances, so maybe they found it very difficult. But I found the silent meditation pretty easy. So we ride on the 24th of December, so New Year's Eve, right? This was in the Montebello, Quebec Center, which is, just an hour outside of Ottawa, an hour and a half outside of Montreal. And, beautiful building. It's an old high school, really nice. You take a vow of silence at around 8 p.m. and you do kind of the initial meditation. And then I kind of go into my room, which was in the same building as the meditation hall. And that's when I started to realize that it's going to be a challenging fucking time. The situation is supposed to be kind of simple and humble, but I just didn't know how simple and humble it was. Like it was like basically a classroom, and in the classroom, they had divided up the classroom with these wires across the classroom, and then they put curtains. So I basically had enough space for a single bed, like a chair, a desk. That's about it. Like that was it. And then I had a wire that I can hang myself with 2 hangers. That was fucking it. And the mattress, this thick, like a 10-year-old could one arm grip this, like easily. Like he could walk around like this, like just with this mattress. And I looked at this mattress and I'm like, I'm fucked. Like I'm so fucked. Like my back is gonna get totally crushed. And it did. It totally got crushed. The morning I woke up, neck was absolutely murked. Like it was totally done. And because they were so worried about bed bugs, the mattress was like basically wrapped in plastic. So anytime you rolled around in it, it kind of had this like crinkling sound, like it was like just stuffed in shower curtains. Like it was just stuffed with shower curtains. It felt like it was stuffed with shower curtains. So you're rolling around, it's like like that plasticky like crunching. Oh man, it was bad. The sleeping was really bad. And then I'm in a room with a bunch of dudes, right? Dudes who, for whatever reason, didn't decide to shower, so stinky. I don't know about you guys. I showered, I put on cologne. It's not for you, it's for fucking me, right? I just want to feel kind of fresh. But some dudes didn't shower. One dude had night terrors and would speak at night. So think about it. On day 3, fucking this dude had, basically night terror, and you haven't heard anyone speak for 3 days, and then someone starts talking in the middle of the night, like you are up, you are like, whoa, like, and and you hear this guy, you're like, holy shit, am I gonna die? And trying to get back to bed then, and the snoring and whatnot. So, thankfully, I was able to get some kind of earplugs from the staff that helped, but it was still challenging. And then it's the eating, right? Like I'm obviously super into fitness, so I count my macros and I eat like at regimented times. So to have my last full meal at 11 a.m. Was insane to me. Like the older students actually had to stop eating by noon. We were able to eat apples and bananas at 5 p.m. as a snack. I a bit cheated. I like literally they called me Banana Man at the end of it because I had like 3 bananas and 2 apples and made like a fruit salad and took the honey that was supposed to be for the tea and fucking doused it with honey. Right. I first started, at the beginning of the Vipassana like days, I would like literally like stuff myself with food like for breakfast and lunch. I teetered out because then I was causing all these second to third order problems during my meditation, drowsiness, upset stomach, blah, blah, blah. So I kind of teetered it out. The food was so simple, really just like basic stuff. Like on day 9, it was just like brown rice, just brown rice. That was the meal, brown rice. I had to put tahini on it just to make it taste good. Like the food really, I wasn't cutting it for me. And I had diarrhea the whole fucking time. Like day 1, day 2, stomach starts getting kind of wonky. Day 3, it's just it's water to the end of it. So for me, like that was one of the challenging parts, was really just like living more humbly, like living not with my fancy ass food, not with my fancy ass bed, like because the bed was so bad, I had used my duvet as a mattress topper. So I was basically going cold, going to bed cold, hungry, with like excruciating amounts of pain all through my body. And that was the situation. Now, the beauty of it is that that's part of the retreat, right? Like the part of the retreat that was, I would say, one of the most challenging parts was kind of the ability to learn to receive, the conditions of consciousness as they appear, whatever they may appear, including pain, hunger, being cold at night, discomfort. And I think that was kind of like where I wasn't prepared for that, right? Like I was looking at meditation as like kind of this like enlightened, blissful state where I'm like kind of one with experience. But in reality, the training really came from just the excruciating amount of pain that I had to kind of just live with. And that's what really the Vipassana technique kind of trains you for. And that's what I was actually really eternally grateful. Because over, the span of 10 days, like you're meditating on the ground. So your body is aching. Your knees are killing you. Your back's killing you, right? My stomach is all over the place because of the fucking, the food. And the key direction is to remain perfectly equanimous. That's in his voice, Goenkaji. But what does perfect equanimity mean? Well, it means that you actually don't have any attachment or any aversion to whatever you're sensing. And this comes from like, Buddhist kind of thought, where you have the sense awareness that that appears in your consciousness, and then there is the labeling and reaction to it that we kind of start building off of that. Like for instance, you may feel pain in your knee, but the fact that you just said my knee is a label of something. The vibrations, the pulsations, the whatever sensations that you're feeling in your knee does not know that it's in your knee. It does not know that it is a knee. So even just saying my knee hurts is adding a label and a reaction to what you are sensing. Like it's that profound. And I found that kind of, because, you say, okay, like I've practiced non-judgment awareness before, where, it's a Stoic practice where you go around life and you just try not to place value judgments on stuff. Try it out. It actually is super hard. I just did one, right? So I thought it was something similar to that, but from a Buddhist level, it was actually a little bit more profound. It was literally any form of labeling. Like I'll give you an example. So we started off the first 3.5 days doing a type of meditation called Anapana, right? Anapana basically is the most popular meditation ever. It's observing the breath as it is, right? So you're supposed to observe any sensation in this triangle, and then we made it into this triangle here, right? And from, from that experience, I'm observing kind of the sensation here, and I'm finding it hard to concentrate, right? Like, especially the first 3 days. And I'll get into this in a second, but like, my mind was all over the place. And I started doing something where I started counting. Right? I started going like counting, 1, 2, 1, 2. A technique that in a lot of the guided meditation apps, they actually kind of recommend. So then the teacher says, don't count. I'm like, oh, this is fucking retarded. Well, why would you not count? So I go and I speak to them, and then they said, well, look, you don't count because you're actually labeling the breath. Like, you are labeling the breath as 1 or as 2. The breath, that's actually putting a observation, like that's actually putting some sort of labeling and reaction onto that. And that is, effectively the beginnings of creating cravings or aversions to different types of bodily sensations. And so that kind of blew my mind. And when you started practicing that, where I was getting sick throughout the day, and I was like, okay, well, like, how do I know I'm sick? And I'm starting to feel like the sensations of what I deem to be sick, right? And I'm feeling like, I'm feeling this kind of like general pressure on my head here, and then this moving kind of pressure here, and I'm just feeling these things. But at a certain point, it's you stop calling it being sick. You stop saying I am sick and start feeling upset with being sick. And you start just feeling the sensations in the body as it is, without any labeling. And that was kind of this practice of being equanimous. And by the end of it, and it wasn't like I held this the whole time, but by the end of it, the pain in my knee and all the other sensations of unpleasantness that I was feeling, it's not like they went away, but I stopped reacting to them. I stopped manifesting a judgment towards them. I started to just like receive them. The way I would explain this metaphorically is, imagine that you are kind of in a loud city, right? You're in a loud city and you're trying to work. And at a certain point you hear, honking and traffic and construction and whatnot. And as you're trying to work, you're just like, oh God, like, why is the city so loud? And you're just like stewing about it. And you're reacting to these sounds. But if you were kind of equanimous, you would kind of just keep working, and there would still be sounds and you'd still kind of hear them, but you wouldn't be reacting to them. They kind of like, retreat, to the background. And, then a lousy city doesn't really bother you. That's how I kind of felt, because at the end of the day, all sensations are just an appearance in consciousness, which, I think was one of the key lessons that I learned there. So as I was saying, like, the first 3 days was me doing and everyone else doing Anapana. And what we were trying to do is really just focus our attentional awareness, almost like attentional training, to be able to do Vipassana on the 3.5 day. And what kept coming up for me was so much anger and so many emotions. Like, I was angry. I was so angry. And it just was like, it would just explode out of me. And I was ruminating over all sorts of conversations, situations. I was lamenting my life. I was like, oh, this person wronged me, and this person left me, and this person, should have known better. And I just, my mind was in this consistent fight with these people. And I was consistently angry at them and consistently kind of like stroking my ego in this ongoing conversation in the brain. And, it was really challenging to even concentrate on the breath. And I found it really perplexing. I was like, where is this coming from? Like, I'm not an angry person. I'm like really cheerful and jolly, and everyone finds me jolly and cheerful. And even if I'm going through tough times, like, a lot of folks are like, oh, Tufik, you have such a positive attitude. And that's how I kind of thought about myself. But for the first time ever that I've ever given myself, literally ever, time, like, without all the learnings that I've just told you thus far, like, just the time to process your own shit was just incredible, right? Like, us humans in this modern society just don't have enough time to process our own goddamn feelings. And this was not the way it was back in the day. Back in the day, you're working the field, you're coming back from a hunt, you had time, you had a lot of alone time, you were fucking bored, you had a lot of time to process your stuff. But we don't have any time to process our stuff. And not only do we not have time, but when we do have time, we decide to avoid it because we have a gazillion things to entertain us, and we bury that shit way, way down where no one's going to see it except when it comes out as some sort of abusive kind of, drug problem or whatever. So I'm having all this anger just like pop out of me, and it was actually so intense that I wouldn't even know that I was in this like tizzy of anger until I would sense my chest really just be expanding and contracting as if I was running. I look at my chest, I'm like, what the fuck's going on? I'm like, oh my god, I'm in this anger tizzy, and I start really reflecting. Right, so the first 3 days was me trying to concentrate on Anapana and me just unable to because I'm in such an angry tizzy. And on the third day, I really open up a big reflection. I'm like, what is this showing? Right? What's going on? Because like, why am I so angry? Like, what is up here? And what I kind of realized was I was really angry because some form of story that I had told about myself had been vitiated, right? Like there was this image of who I was, and that image was being violated by somebody, and I was upset at them that they violated that image. And it's funny that this kind of came back because once I started being like, is it their problem? Like once I started turning it onto me, I'm like, well, like, I can't change them. Like, what is it showing in me? And I started really looking within myself. I started realizing that was the case. And that links back to kind of what was my main kind of self-development goal of 2025, which was to let go of stories of myself that did not serve me. The main one was kind of that I was destined for greatness, which I had felt, for a variety of reasons since I was a kid. And I think a lot of people do feel this, which I've realized in talking to folks. But I felt that no longer served me because I felt like it was putting a lot of pressure on people. It was making me a bit delusional and kind of cut corners, thinking that like I had like to meet certain time deadlines to do the thing that I was supposed to do. And it was just adding a lot of pressure, not only on me, but on the folks around me. And I wasn't really giving them the time. I wasn't really listening to them because I was so kind of like single-minded in this kind of pursuit of greatness that it really kind of took away my empathy, took away my listening skills, took away my ability to just relate to people and relate to kind of the day-to-day experiences of life with people, because I was kind of like on this kind of Herculean mission. And, letting go of that story was actually fairly easy, right? Because it became so burdensome for me. But that story really was like the tip of the iceberg. It was like the headline story. But then there was like thousands, if not, hundreds of thousands of little stories that supported that story, right? From me being smart, to me needing to be successful, to me being a good lawyer, to me being a good colleague, to me being a great entrepreneur, salesperson, kind of public speaker, me being great in the sack, right? Or me having to have done this or should have done that or needed to do this, or me comparing myself to the zillions of people that I compare myself to on a day-to-day, right? And whatever that story was. And like every piece of life was this micro comparison that I would make with this person and that person. And, oh, I'm better than this guy. Oh, I'm better looking than this guy. I'm buffer than this guy. I'm more successful than that guy. I can't believe that guy got that girl who's way prettier than him. Like, just like, what was going on? And if you look really back to it, every single reaction of that nature was back to a story of I. It was always coming back to this image I had of myself. And so for the next 2-3 days in Vipassana, I started just removing these stories. This story, that story, that story, this story, this story. I just kept going and going and going until I realized, almost like, in a Scooby-Doo kind of cartoon where you're removing the masks, I removed the final mask and I realized that there was nothing there. There was nothing there. The self was a total illusion. And I was completely just enraptured by this image of me. But me never existed, and it never will exist. And it doesn't exist for any of us. And this is where kind of the non-dualistic teachings that I've been so fervently believing really clicked into place. And the sermon from Goenkaji, the discourse from Goenkaji, like on that day 4 or 5, really hit home. He said we really grow attached to this image of I, this concept of I, right? He said that like it's almost like if a painter painted this painting of himself and then fell madly in love with that painting and wouldn't let you touch it or hurt it or change it or anything of the sort. We would call that person a mad fellow, as you would say, a mad fellow. And indeed, we would find that person to be insane. But that's what we do every single day. Every single day, we create a little story, hundreds of them, maybe even a day, that just are a little brush stroke to this image of I. And it goes kind of much deeper than that, right? Like, because everyone hears about like the dissolution of the ego, right? We've heard of this concept before, but it's really much more than that, because in ego, people think of it in a Freudian way. We have an id, an ego, and a super ego. And it's kind of like this, like, trilogy of what makes you, right? But in reality, it's not just removing the ego, which is like confidence or like egotism or any other kind of adjective around that. It's really just removing you. It's dissolving the idea of I and just not having any attachment, aversion, or even actually any additional thought. Any additional thought that adds to this painting should actually just not be added. And I started to experience this phenomenologically as well. And this is where the theory and the experience really hones down and makes total sense. And this is, I'll take this from Sam Harris as he really, drills down on this, but it makes total sense. Where, where is the seat of your attention? Where is the little I? Where is the me, the soul, whatever you want to call it? Where's the seat of your consciousness? And for me, like, I would feel it kind of like here. I sometimes joke it was like the green little kind of alien in the Jetsons. And I have like a little guy here who's just like, pulling the levers and just moving me around. It's like, okay, time to now eat. All right, move up, move down. And that's kind of where I feel it. I feel it kind of like right here. And I have this seat of attention. It's like here. But then try to look for the looker. Try to, in an instant, find this person. Turn attention upon itself. And what you'll realize is this concept of I, this little me that exists here, is as well just an appearance in consciousness, just like a sound or a thought or your tummy rumbling because you're hungry. It's the same thing. And when you get to a level of meditation, which I got in certain times, where there's a dissolution of this experience of I, this condition of consciousness that I exists, you really start to actually notice it. Like, for example, right now, where is the sensation of your foot towards you? It sounds like a silly question, but where is it? Like, directionally, from the little I, the little you, the seat of your attention, the seat of your consciousness, where is your foot? Most people will say it's down there, but why? Is it really down there? Down from what? From here? Why is the seat of attention here? Because we have most of our senses here. There is no attentional projection coming from here. And when I was able to meditate, I was able to more or less dissolve this kind of relative relation to the sensation of my foot. I was able to actually feel all the conditions of consciousness, from sound to sights, in this kind of equal plane. The thoughts too. In this kind of like, and when it kind of dissolves into this equal plane, you really stop seeing the self. And you realize that the self is very much an illusion. And it is the greatest illusion that all of us suffer from. And it is the illusion that generates all of our unhappiness and all of our suffering. And this was extremely profound. And so on the 30th and the 31st of December, I went out into the woods during my walk and I buried myself. I buried everything about me. I buried the fact that I was successful, the fact that I was smart. I buried, my looks. I buried my age. I buried everything. I sat down, I buried the idea of me. And I buried each and every single piece of those stories for 2 days. I just sat there and I buried them. And I mourned myself. I mourned myself a lot. I really liked me. I really liked this image of me. But this image of me was also really just everything that I didn't like about me too. It was my egoism. It was my, self-centeredness. It was my lack of listening. It was my lack of empathy. It was all the qualities that, I didn't really love in myself. And to be able to bury all of that, bury my success, bury my relationship to it, bury all of it, bury Renault, my firm, just completely mourn its existence and contemplate its impermanence was really hard and was honestly one of the most profound realizations that I had during that 10-day meditation. I couldn't bury my attachment to my wife. That's the one thing I held on to. I think that will come, but I felt that was a bridge too far for me to be able to bury. And so I did that for the first 2 days, for the last 2 days of the year. And on New Year's Day, I came out feeling fresh like a daisy. I felt so unburdened. It was magical. But the second day, January 2nd, which was, I think, now we're at the 8th day of Vipassana, was back to a lot of hardship. I was getting sick again. Pain was coming up again. There was a night terror. I didn't sleep well. And I realized that, even though I notionally kind of buried myself and dissolved the idea of I, there was still a lot of work to do. There was, countless habit patterns that I had built over, the 30 odd years of conscious awareness that I've had that needed to be dissolved. And 2 days in the woods, kind of mourning and grieving myself, wasn't going to cut it. But at the very least, I was able to let go. I was able to first see that this was the main root cause of all my issues and problems. I was able to let go, and I was able to commit to kind of a meditation practice that, I felt, if sustained, would able to, remove these habit patterns around the attachments that I've had, to the idea of I, and just kind of be able to fully experience existence, the present moment, and really, however, this corpus decides to manifest itself as it is and not as I wanted it to be, and not be upset if I'm tired or slow, or if I failed an exam or didn't close a client, or that I'm, or add any kind of qualifiers that I'm behind or ahead or whatever. I would just always know that I was never late, and I was always where I was supposed to be. And I was never wrong. I was always what I am. And there was a lot of kind of beauty in that. Now, obviously, it doesn't mean that we cannot have effort and strive. You still need to strive and have effort. And this is where the dialectical thinking comes in, right? Where you have to, be kind of fully accepting of, the present manifestation of your conscious awareness. But it does not mean that you should not, attempt to be better and do good. But it's almost like this lightness that I'm approaching it to. And that lightness, allows me actually, I think, to probably do it a lot better than having all this anxiety, fear, ego, hope, and any other feelings that I may have around. So day 8 and day 9 were challenging. I was getting sick, probably got COVID. And whereas I had started off with a chair at the beginning, because I had never meditated on the ground. And then for a big chunk of it, I was oscillating between chair and the ground. As people started getting more injured from the meditation, my chair got taken and I was only on the ground, and I had a really bad secondary chair, which you couldn't really meditate on. So I was more or less meditating kind of on the ground, so to speak, which added a lot to the pain. And this is really where on day 9, where I was able to develop a lot of the skill set around being equanimous to the pain and to the sensations that I was experiencing. So that was really beneficial there too. On the 10th day, we were introduced to metta practice, which is a love and kindness practice. So we started off with anapana, which is, observing the breath as it is. Then we did Vipassana, which is effectively the way that Goenkaji teaches it. It's effectively like a body scan that you do, and you're just, bringing your awareness to different pieces of your body and experiencing the bodily sensations as it is, right? On a side note, one of the craziest things was really when you would like feel a certain sensory awareness, a memory would come up, like a super random memory of like this person you haven't thought or seen in like 12 years, or of an alleyway in some obscure part of Madrid on a trip you took like a couple of years ago. Really funny stuff. And what was crazy as well was your ability to like actually start noticing the relation between thoughts and bodily sensations. Every time you had some form of bodily sensation, there was an associated thought or emotion to it. And just being able to actually concentrate on that, I found was really an interesting part of the way in which Goenkaji taught the meditations. Because in the other meditations, you practice some sort of noting technique like that I've done with, Sam Harris in Headspace, where, you see the thought as it is and you kind of watch it unravel. Well, here, you're almost watching the sensation unravel, and you're kind of meditating on the impermanence of the sensation. And in that kind of methodology, you see kind of that sensation kind of just dissipate, and so does the thought. I'm not too sure which one I like better or worse, but yeah, I felt that's still a TBD for me. And so on the 10th day in the morning, we get introduced to a metta practice, which is a love and kindness practice, where we basically, attempt to, bring forth love and kindness to all beings. And I really love this. Like, this is obviously, I've done metta before. And one of the the greatest things about metta in the Buddhist, iteration is, in the dualistic mindset of, at least Christianity and Islam, goodness and kindness and love are always conditioned to some sort of reward or sanction in the afterlife, right? In Arabic, we would call it hasanat and sayyi'at, right? Hasanat meaning like good deed points, right? And sayyi'at being like sins. So, my mother would always be like, oh, like I was just on the phone with her earlier. And, I help out with my grandmother, as people know. And she was like, you're getting hasanat and, for the afterlife. And it's almost like it kind of tarnishes the altruism of the act. It tarnishes like this pure love and pure giving without attachment, without even wanting or being attached to the sensation of good feels that you feel after the good act. It tarnishes that because it's like, are you doing a good act so you can have a nice, afterlife, or are you doing a good act out of real love and kindness? And this is where I really like this metta practice in the Buddhist rendition, is because it was really just kind of a pure love and kindness that you can practice. And, I first practiced love and kindness to myself. I was listening to a Buddhist nun this week, and she, Tenzin Palmo, and she basically said that the Buddha said you should actually first practice metta to yourself before you can practice metta to others. And I really thought that was powerful, because I think, a huge part of the image of myself was that I was always bad, right? Like I was always a never complete. I was always never not perfect. And therefore I was always kind of this tarnished, not worthy individual. And again, that was part of the image. I had this image of myself in this perfected, like demigod-like image, which I think a lot of us put such intense pressure on ourselves to be that person. So then when we don't meet that consistently, we are consistently lamenting ourselves for not being this insane image that we painted of ourselves. So we really do suffer from a lack of self-love. Being able to practice metta to myself, especially to me as a young boy, like I would bring up an image of myself as a young boy, and I would just give myself so much love that I did not feel like I had received as a young boy, because I had received always conditioned love on, success, grades, being religious. And that was deeply profound. Like it was deeply profound to just send strong metta to myself. And then I was able to at the end of the 10th day, started to send strong metta out to the world, to all beings. And with the chanting that Goenkaji would chant during this time, I was able to basically tap into this huge, this full body sensation of kind of vibrations in which, as I kind of, sent out this love and kindness, I felt almost like this expansion in my chest of this radiation, which was profound. It was so beautiful. And obviously the ego immediately goes, oh my fucking God, you're doing it. You're like, oh my God, dude, let me just have this experience for once. So yeah, that's how we ended the retreat. And I made some great friends at the end. They let you chat at the end, which I think they let you chat for most of the 10th day. Basically, after the first metta in the morning, the vow of silence taken over. So it's more of like a 9-day silent retreat. And you can still speak to teachers, by the way. So I had probably like one very brief kind of conversation a day on average. So it wasn't like fully silent. I left feeling pretty destroyed. Like my back was broken. I was sick with possibly COVID. I had, all sorts of stomach problems. And, in the car, I was basically like a wretched version of myself. So much so that like the last meditation on the 11th day in the morning, it was like 4:30. I slept like maybe 1 hour and I had to drive back. Like I couldn't even go on, which was unfortunate. But, since then, in the last 2 weeks, I've really seen the benefits of this retreat. Things that would usually bother me don't bother me anymore. I'm not comparing myself, that much anymore to people. It still occurs, but just less. I'm not upset if I don't finish something or if I don't get to something. I just accept it as it is. And I just meditate on the impermanence of it all. Anicca. And it's just been really beautiful just to kind of go through life observing it as it is. And, I had one colleague of mine lament me for always being behind. And I kind of just looked at him and I said, I'm not behind, I'm exactly where I need to be. And that's exactly where I feel like I am right. Every moment is where I need to be. What has happened and couldn't have happened in any other way. And because I don't have this attachment to I can live with that. And because I understand that life is in this constant changing permeation that, getting attached to any moment is bizarre. It's almost like a river is passing you by. You get attached to this part of the river, though that part of the river in a moment's notice wouldn't exist. Or it's almost like, life's like a rope and it's just pulling, the rope's pulled away and you're just holding on. And your attachment is this rug burn that is just happening as the flow of existence just whips on by. And I've just really been able to just sit back and enjoy such small moments in my life. And the last couple of weeks, I've been able to meditate and to find kind of new grounds in my meditation as I try to take them longer and do them more intensely. And, I'm resolved to just in each moment attempt to live equanimously and not, be, upset or push away or attached to, any sensations or thoughts or emotions that come my way, and just allowing them to pass and observing them objectively and understanding that they will pass. And in times in which they linger a little longer than I want, I just practice some metta and give myself some love and kindness and keep on going. So yeah, that's the summary of my experience. Hope you take away a bit from it, and hopefully maybe I'll see you doing a meditation center yourself in the near future.